evening, and welcome to the Monday, January 11th, Muscatine Community School District Board meeting. Madam Secretary, would you take roll for us and determine a quorum, please?
Director Cooney?
Here.
Director DeBeat?
Here.
Bravo?
Here.
Finn?
Here.
Carter?
Here.
Morgan?
Here.
Sure.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. As we've done at several of our meetings with our pledge, we have asked various groups through the school district to lead us in the pledge, and we've had different classrooms, we've had different activities. So tonight, we are going to be led by Miss Taylor Anderson's 4th grade class at Franklin Elementary. And I think Scott's going to run the magic. I would ask that you all stand and we will let them lead us. And we thank Ms. Taylor's class for leading us tonight, and we have more of those planned throughout the year. Our next item on our agenda is our public hearing. This is regarding the MHS bleacher and press box project. This may feel a little bit out of place. The public hearing traditionally goes, when we have one, towards the very top portion of our agenda. It is an opportunity that if there's anyone in the public that would like to address the board on the topic, they're welcome to do so. I would ask for a motion to open our public hearing.
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, would you do a roll call vote for us, please, on this item?
My pleasure. Director Cooney?
Aye.
DeBeat?
Aye.
Bravo?
Aye.
Finn?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Morgan?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. So we are now open in a public, Denny, did you not get a vote?
Sure. You forgot me.
Sorry, Denny.
Aye.
He was going to vote nay, too.
You should have neighed just because of that.
He was going to vote nay.
I'd say you could vote twice next time, but that's not quite how it works, darn it.
I'll start with you next.
There you go. So the public hearing is now open. I would invite anyone that would like to address the board. If there's any comments anyone would like to make, now would be the time to do that. I would ask that you step to the podium and state your name and address for our board secretary so we can capture it in our minutes. And we would ask that you limit the comments to 3 minutes. And all is quiet in the chamber. All right. Have we received any written or
No.
oral comments? Okay. I would then at this time, so this is not the time where we approve the project. This is just a time where we open the public hearing. We invite anyone that would like to address the board to do so. So you'll see this conversation come up a little bit later. Since we don't have any public comments, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that was Denny.
Since I didn't get the.
It's funny how we have to rely on each other's voices more now than ever. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion by the board? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you do another roll call vote for us, please?
Director Cooney?
Here.
DeBeat?
Aye.
Aye.
Bravo?
Aye.
Finn?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Morgan?
Aye.
Sure.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. That closes our public hearing. The next item on our agenda is our MHS Student Council update.
Hi, I'm Veda. And I'm Kylie. And we're both seniors from the Student Council. So Happiness Week was held before winter break, and we are so excited to share that it was a major success. We were able to host dress-up days, play holiday music over the speakers, we were able to decorate parts of the school in winter-themed cheer, serve free prepackaged snacks during lunchtime, and have raffle prize drawing for items donated from the community. Also, we participated in Santa letters with over 13 elementary classes in the district.
We are now in the process of planning second semester's events. As always, we are continuing to evaluate student council events based on the changing circumstances regarding COVID guidelines. Our main priority this semester is prom, and we are currently in the process of working with administration to discuss our options for hosting this event later in the semester. We are also in the process of rescheduling Mr. Muscatine for sometime this semester and are looking at options for things to do in lieu of our traditional senior survivor. As always, we will be in communication with the high school and district administration as well as the school board as we make plans and decisions regarding these events. Are there any questions for us?
I think you're off the hook.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for continuing to be flexible in these times of where anything goes from, I would say, week to week, but it feels like sometimes day to day and hour to hour. So we appreciate that, and we will all hope for a healthier county that lets some of these really important activities for your senior year happen.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, ladies. Next on our agenda is our Citizen Speaks portion of the agenda. This is where if we have anyone that would like to address the board, this is your opportunity to do so. I would again ask that you step to the podium, say your first and last name and address so that our board secretary can capture that in the minutes. And I would ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And know that this is not an opportunity for the board to engage in conversation. While we always appreciate hearing from you, if a conversation can happen much easier outside of a board meeting. So again, the chamber is quiet. All right, so I don't think we have citizens speak. That takes us to our board targets and goals. And I'm going to just read through these very quickly because this is what drives the work that we all do. Students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably, and students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And I think as we see regularly now on our board agenda, it's a return to learn update.
So I'll probably ramp up with I've got several items I want to update the board on, but we're going to start with our regular return to learn update. And again, I think I've mentioned this, that although it feels like a long time since we last met, it's 10 school days. So not a whole lot has transpired since then, but we have some other updates that I think as things are coming up are important for you to know and keep in mind. So with that, I'll turn it over to Becky Witchers.
All right. Well, we have some exciting news to share with the board. So we have a new program option for the 2021-22 school year at Melk that is currently being developed. Parents will have the opportunity to have their 4-year-old in a bilingual program if they so choose. As parents register, they can indicate their interest. This is a free program that is open to all 4-year-olds. The regular preschool curriculum is followed, but instead of 100% being taught in English, it will be taught in a 50-50 split, 50 Spanish, 50 English. So this is really an exciting addition that we're bringing to Melk. So time will be spent this semester in future developing this. We will be looking at curriculum materials, PD for our teachers and administrators and staff at Melk, looking at research best practices with bilingual immersion programs, do some on-site visits, network with other districts that have bilingual programs. In the fall of 2022, MCSD will have an elementary option for parents with students entering kindergarten that would like to begin their start in a dual language immersion program. So this dual language immersion program will be at one of our elementary buildings. We will begin with kindergarten and then add a section each year through 6th grade. Time will be spent this semester and continuing into next year in the learning, planning, and preparing for full implementation for the fall of 2022. So the vision would be for a building to have a K-6 dual language program with students being fully bilingual by the end of 6th grade. And this will also eventually bring about some course changes to the junior high and senior high in future years to come. So that is very, very exciting. Our next new opportunity, we have another one called Kinder Academy. So Kinder Academy is a district program for young 5-year-olds, such as those with summer birthdays, June, July, August, up till September 15th. So the program follows the Muscatine Community School District's kindergarten curriculum and pacing. Students who are ready to move on to 1st grade after 1 year will do so. Students who would benefit from an additional year will stay in the program. So the teacher will modify the curriculum for the older children's developmental level. The older kindergarten students become leaders in the class and role models to incoming 5-year-olds. So this program will be housed at a district elementary school yet to be determined, and transportation is provided to Kinder Academy students that currently live in our district and that would want that. So those are 2 new exciting opportunities that we have for our families. Next, Joelle's going to give an update on second semester numbers.
Just before we move on, Becky, I just want to see if anybody has any questions, around those 2 programs. I would say Kinder Academy is especially important as we're thinking about a number of preschool students that didn't materialize this year due to COVID, as well as some of our kindergarten students. So we have some students with some interrupted education or non-existent education. So identifying a program that is really based on, we want to get them to the target of being prepared for 1st grade, but knowing that it might take more time. And so it's a full-day kindergarten program, but as we look at the end of that 1st year, some students will move on if they're ready for 1st grade, but not all students will, and the teachers will work with the parents on that. I think that's going to be an important option for them.
Would they be able to, they may start out that 2nd year option because they still kind of look like they need it, but if they look like they've advanced enough, would they be able to go ahead and go on to then 1st grade, or would they still have to complete that second
That's
year?
a good question. I think anytime we have to meet the needs of kids, and if suddenly in the fall they've had an incredible summer and they're in a different place, we can always reassess that. And because it functions within an existing building, it also gives you the flexibility that you could push into a 1st grade program within that building and give them some additional experiences to prepare them. So I think a lot of things can happen, and it can be very flexible.
Good, thank you.
Will this academy be at one building, or will it be in each building, or what?
So you're not going to have enough numbers to do it in multiple locations. We've talked about, so for sure it'd be in one location. And again, we would have to transport to that location. It would just be for that year or 2 years. Then when they're ready to move on to 1st grade, they would go back to their home building, okay? If we have enough numbers, we could look at doing 2 locations, and maybe we do a north-south or however that works out. Those will be part of the process we'll have to go through to determine, but some of that will also be dependent on numbers and so on.
Okay.
What are the differences between this and kindergarten? Are they the same thing or different?
So this would be based on, this is really, it's kindergarten. So, but it's targeted for our young kindergartens. So it's following the regular kindergarten schedule, curriculum, pacing, where kindergarten was a little bit more developmental, had a little bit of flavor of preschool, and then kind of that year to grow type feeling. So this is kindergarten.
So is this optional for the people that have, the kids that have summer birthdays, or are they gonna be pushed into this? Or if the family feels that their kid needs this? Okay.
Yep.
So Becky, I was a May birthday, but if I would have been behind, I would not have had this option. Is there a cut date of when the birthday is? It has to be a summer birthday?
Well, right now we're looking at summer birthdays, June, July, August, September. We have a feeling that we currently have quite a few In looking at our current 4-year-olds, we probably have at least 80 plus that have a summer birthday, but whether parents would want this or not, that would be up to them. Because as you know, every kiddo with a summer birthday, this, may not be something that parents would want. So we feel we have quite a few in that birthday range, but if we would need to look at other things too, if we had other children out there, we would definitely do that.
And I would probably support that. Start with the summer birthdays, and if you can't fill it with that, or if there's open spaces, then fill it with by need. So that'd be my recommendation,
Okay.
my opinion, not recommendation.
If a parent has a question on whether their child should attend this, is there something that they can look at or to try and understand whether their child should go through this or not?
Yes, if they have questions, I would have a parent reach out to their child's principal so they can kind of articulate the kindergarten curriculum and answer any questions. Always they can talk to their child's teacher as well. So we'll be developing some more formal criteria to look at and how we're going to implement that and communicate out to parents this semester.
And just to be clear, they'll be in a kindergarten classroom with other kindergartners for an entire year. So we'll have a year basically to evaluate, are they on pace, or are they a little bit behind? Do they need a little bit more support?
Correct.
Okay,
Well,
that's what I
if they
thought.
choose to do this, right? But they could still, with a summer birthday, go into kindergarten, couldn't they?
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
It's a parent choice to go into Kinder Academy, or even if they have a summer birthday, they can go into general kindergarten.
Right.
It's completely up to the parent.
Yeah, so you mentioned that they would talk to the student's teacher and principal, but if they're deciding whether they're entering kindergarten or entering Kinder Academy, they wouldn't have a teacher to talk to or anything like that,
Well,
would they?
we would put them in their home school, so we would, if they want to speak to somebody that can articulate kindergarten, if they have questions about kindergarten,
I see.
that would be the,
Questions
that would
about
be the point
kindergarten
person.
before they
Yes,
go.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the preschool teachers, if they are in
That's what I- yeah.
preschool,
Yeah.
they will also have background. And we've also created a booklet, an informational booklet that really walks parents through every aspect of this program. And then we'll make a little video, but they can, also go through preschool teachers, call the principal at their buildings. They can call out to the board office and can help them too.
Well, I want to talk about the other program. I'm really excited about learning more about the bilingual preschool opportunity because I understand and value that opportunity and what we can give our future leaders when we add that extra language to them at a very early age. So thanks for that, and I look forward to have more information about that. Thank you.
And Becky, that'll be at the Muskie Early Learning Center. We
Correct.
refer to it as milk,
Milk.
which I feel like sounds like milk, like you drink, and it's not. As far as I know, it's not. And so I always have to think about that when I hear the acronym. So it'll be at the Early Learning Center.
Yes.
I'm going to, along with what you said there, John, I think of this as also an opportunity, if you think about it, kids bringing home the language, and so the parents that have not maybe had a chance to really know any Spanish or anything else, they've got a chance to be able to learn as well, so it actually makes it even further into our community that way as well. So I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, it's a very exciting program. One question I've already asked you, Clint, is what if it's so exciting that everybody wants to do it? How do you make the decision who gets to do it and who doesn't? I know that's what you'll learn over this period of time, but that's one thing I would ask those other school districts is, how did you make the choice of who gets to be in this program and who doesn't?
So, separating the preschool program from the dual language immersion program. When you get to the dual language immersion program by design, you typically want up to 50% of your students in that program native Spanish speakers. So that starts to differentiate, as you're selecting students. And if we have to go to a lottery system, we would have to look at that. Obviously, we're more limited on sections that we can offer of that because of staffing and some other pieces. I think it's a little easier for us to move forward at least. And again, even for next year, we have a staff member currently in the district who can do that bilingual 50-50 Spanish-English for preschool. But we have one, right?
Right.
So when that fills up, and again, we'd have to look at that. And then as years go on, if we can expand that and hire additional staff, we'll continue to do that. So we're definitely going to need more time to build out and develop the dual language immersion program, which is why it's not happening next year. We have a staff member that we can move forward with in pre-K for that program. And so we know we have enough time to make sure they have professional development. We have time to really talk it through with parents who choose that option, that we have the materials that students need and the teachers need to be successful next year. And in the process, we'll start building out what that longer-term plan is for the immersion program.
Clint, as you think about that, kind of piggybacking off what Aaron said a little bit, if this is going to be something that's going to be K-6, and we only do one section of it, and we basically have created a cohort that will follow all the way through K-6. And sometimes that's good, and there's sometimes that's not good.
Yep.
I mean, I think we've all of us that have been in education enough know that it's nice sometimes to be able to mix your classes.
And one of the things you have to do with that program too is so typically if you have a kindergarten, let's say our target for kindergarten is 20, you may have to put 24 in that program because over time kids move, it happens, right? And you can't just place a kid in 3rd grade and drop them into an immersion program where they've been speaking Spanish for 3 or 4 years and they're not going to be successful. You'll occasionally get a student who moves in who's coming from an immersion program that you could target into it, but it's very rare. So you kind of build those up so over time you stay more consistent kind of with that district average for class size. But that is a challenge, for sure.
So update on second semester numbers.
Thank you.
Joelle.
Okay, I just wanted to keep you posted on the numbers that we have in our virtual programming. So again, just looking at our numbers at elementary, we started with 490 students first semester, and we currently have 340 families or students who are going to be attending virtually second semester. At Susan Clark, we started at 153. Second semester, we will have 60 students in the virtual program. At the high school, we started with 339 first semester, and going into second semester, we'll be at 198. So we do have just a very few parents who haven't made a final commitment, but you can kind of get an overall picture, of where we are with our students. So those students that will be in the virtual program, on this next slide, I wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that are going to take place to help support them. We do know that, especially just based on first semester, how important it is for our teachers to have connections with our students and support them in their academic progress, especially in a remote learning situation. So based on kind of some things that we learned first semester, Susan Clark Junior High will be having a parent night on January 18th from 4 to 5 to go over what Odyssey looks like for a virtual student and the student schedules. At Susan Clark, they have assigned teachers to all students that are in remote learning to check in with them twice a day, once in the morning, just to get them checked in with attendance, kind of go through their day, and then they will be checking in with them again later in the day to support them with any homework or assignments that they have. Those teachers will also be available if students have questions throughout the day to help them whenever those questions come up. One of the things that we heard from parents is that it was really important to them at the junior high level that the students still stayed connected to other students. And so time is built into the student schedules to stay connected to the school through classroom meetings. And then they are finishing up the student tutoring program that will be open for students in the morning and after school. And that program will be available and with teachers to help students as well. So we've built a lot of support for students at that junior high level. At the high school, a parent letter and video have gone out to all parents and a contact for those students in remote learning. Teachers have also been assigned to all students to check in daily with students. We kind of talked about that expectation of checking in with them weekly or daily, and we really felt that, you know, if you wait a whole week to check in with a student, they could theoretically be a week behind in assignments and it just starts snowballing for them. So we made a decision to have that check-in daily for our students. There will be teacher office hours for parents if they need to contact teachers that their students are working with. And then the students, Danny Wolf, who's a counselor at the high school, has been working with lots of kids to create a student tutoring center at the high school, and the goal of that program will be to have this available and open all day, every day. Students who had currently taken courses will be connected and available with students who maybe are struggling with some concepts or even just want a place to go to work on assignments. We've also been working with several of our community members, and they are willing to help support. For example, the Y is willing to offer pizza night for the kids once a week. The kids at the high school are going to kind of be setting up that tutoring center. They felt like it was important that they do the invites to the other kids, that even though we can, you know, teachers can have kids go there, they thought that they could get more kids to come and have a place where it can be like a tutoring learning center that people can just work on assignments and so forth. So those are just some of the things that we are putting in place to help support our students who are remaining to stay remotely.
Question I have is, I remember last time, I believe it was, we talked about how late at night that the, would be available for kids to be able to get onto the software?
Yes.
Odyssey?
So the kids at the junior high are going to actually be scheduled in the day, so they will not. The high school students, I believe, can go on and work on assignments in the evening if that works better for them. But the teachers will be checking in with them during the contract hours of 8 to 4. So.
Joel?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, thank you. I really like that idea of student tutoring center, and whoever came up with this idea, I mean, that's an amazing, I think. When students help each other, it does work much better, I feel sometimes. Even at the college, it does work a lot when students help students. So this is a great idea, so thank you for plugging this into this remote learning process, so thank you.
Is the student center going to be virtual?
Yes, so that is optional for students. They can work, the kids that are in there can work with kids virtually, or they can come in person. So yes, they have either option to do that. And our community members are also, when we're able to open back up, there's a lot of community members that are willing to come in and help support students. They're also available to help support. We have started talking about like a little bit of a mentoring type program where another adult would make a connection with kiddos that, you know, maybe needed that extra support.
I'm actually thinking the other way. If most of these parents and families have already chosen virtual and the only support they can get is face-to-face, I don't know that we're serving them in a way that they would like.
Yeah, we did. Danny Wolf started it this first semester a little bit, and there were kids that they worked with remotely only.
Okay.
So, but this student tutoring program doesn't have to just be for the remote learning students. It can be for the in-person or hybrid students as well, so it's
I
open.
think it's
to both.
also important that these are the structures we want to maintain as we move forward in any year. And so this is an opportunity to meet the needs of kids now, but also build that infrastructure as we move forward, because again, having students supporting each other, it also helps kind of break down some of that. It might be easier to go to a peer than it is to go to a teacher sometimes. The other thing we know is those who are tutoring. For instance, we'll have some kids that are about to take the ACT, and they haven't done geometry for 3 years. And tutoring that helps rebuild their skills and actually helps better prepare them as they get ready to take that ACT. So there's benefits on both sides for our students in that.
Having a little experience with this from the first semester, I think the students that we're asking to have some tutoring, the student tutors need help connecting with those students.
Right.
So-
We did talk about that as well. There, right now, I checked in with Danny today, and there's a lot of kids that need the tutoring, and they may not always be as willing. So the counselors are working on those connections through home as well.
Yeah, when the student tutor is the one responsible for trying to connect with
Yeah.
that student, they don't know what to do.
Okay, and I'll make sure I work with her. She said she was pulling them all in, and we had, so for example, when we met with some of the students, and then I followed back up with her later, they said sometimes it's easier for them to invite kids because there isn't such a stigma attached to like being told you have to go. And that if they can create an atmosphere where well, their atmosphere was like cafe tables and, you know, coffee and all those kinds of things, which whatever it
Starbucks.
takes, that's fine. But they felt like if we could kind of create a center that wasn't a stigma of like, you have to go to this place. And so we know that there will be some kids that just connect because they want that, and then other kids that we'll have to help them with.
Yeah, and I know they were learning throughout the first semester.
Yeah,
but
the
it was just
first-
hard for student tutors to make a connection with the ones that the school was requiring needed tutoring.
Yeah, yep. Those were some of the things we talked about from first semester. It was on a smaller scale, and now it's a bigger scale, but we've talked about some of those pieces. That's the hardest part, is getting the kids in that may need that, so, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that initial having to do with it, when you talk about the stigma even, you know, just the fact you're going to do it and stuff, so that if there's any type of communication that you can do to get that kid over that hump, then it's gonna be a heck of a lot easier for them to be able to do. So kudos for taking and trying to work out some different steps.
Yeah, and I think the Y was going to do pizza for them like on Monday nights or something. The other thing we talked about with the kids is they said some of our tutoring, the kids that tutor are in activities after school. So we have to kind of be cognizant of the times and how we can have that available for them, so.
Now, these students that are virtual the second semester, they're virtual for the whole second semester, is that correct? Or do they have the option to come back in?
Well, they've made a commitment for second semester, but we have on a case-by-case basis met with families if, you know, there's different
Sure.
situations that arise for
Right.
our families that we can get them back in.
But typically, they're gonna be virtual for the whole semester.
Joelle, those folks that are remaining virtual, are we comfortable? I'm curious, what are our kids in crisis? What's that look like in reality? Because we're talking tutoring, and I know we've been talking about this anyway, just this is a strange 2020 that we've been in, that we were in. What's this look like?
For our remote learners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've been talking, I know Mr. Christopher can, you know, attest to this. We've been talking to other districts in our state, and we are very similar to other districts of kids and, you know, with remote learning. The things that we talked about is that adding in is you can't be reactive. You know, we can't let kids fail and then try to react and get them out. We have to put some preventative things in place for them. And, you know, two things that we know are critical are that connection and relationship with our teachers. And the second one is that layering of support for kids along the way, so that we can help them, you know, immediately and not let them fail and then try to help. So those are two of the pieces that we're trying to add in, that layering for our kids, because, you know, we want to make sure that we're there to support them along the way.
Are we on pace? I don't know how many kids would fail a year, I mean, just by nature.
Yeah,
Is it a greater pace now than it is sans COVID?
We would have more kids failing now than we did before COVID, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joel, another question, like, because I heard you mentioning that, and also I heard Karen mentioning that, you know, dealing with the stigma here. Sometimes, yes, the terms that we use or the wording that we use might indicate that we are dealing with a stigma like that. So even a changing or a small change instead of student tutoring center, it could be, you know, I'm just like thinking, like sharing what you know center might it change that stigma, or learning center might change that. But I mean, it's the idea, or the end results is still
Yeah.
the same, but yeah, sometimes changing that title might change the nature of how people view that, but that's great.
Yeah.
Great work.
The kids actually were going to come up with a name. I think they were going to call it a student learning center, which was the name that they last left. I know they were kind of working on that with her. And I know they were looking at using, maybe I said this, I can't remember, but they're looking at using the library, and there's a little cafe area off the library there. So that's kind of an area that they wanted to use.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, the only other concern is too strong of a word, but if we had 60 parents at the junior high level that chose to keep their families and their kids remote, bringing them together on one night might be a little bit of they might have some, I don't know, I could be reading into it that they would be uncomfortable going into a gathering of probably 120 people.
Yeah.
So is there any way that, I don't know if Chris and
Jen,
the school have thought about, can we reach out to the parents ahead of time to see how many people are comfortable with this, who's not? Can we do individual? You know, we just want to make sure that we reach out to everybody, though,
Yeah,
in a way they're comfortable.
Yep, they did have, when they sent it out, had a sign up for how many parents, and then the counselors were meeting with families, and then Jen and Chris were also meeting. So, yeah, they will be cognizant of, you know, meeting parents virtually if they're not comfortable.
Thank you.
I'm going to say too, just from the standpoint that the new students that are like going to junior high and high school to begin with, they're actually at a very disadvantage as it is this year of not having a chance to really know their peers. And so again, anything that you can make it almost fun and communicative in which to be able to get them involved with it, so that they don't feel that really been left behind, is all the way around well appreciated, and anything that we can do to help you with that, please let us know.
Yeah, I know that at the junior high level, Jen and Chris had created a schedule so that all virtual students have the very first period where they're doing classroom meetings, and then connections with one another virtually and with teachers, so that they can keep that social piece so they're not isolated. Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting when they get to really see each other for the first time in real life.
Yeah, I think we're all excited for that. Okay.
Now I've got just a few pieces, kind of big picture, I want to update everybody on. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about the positivity rate. Again, that's the 14-day average for the county that we are required to use. As you know, at one point, we were over 30%, and that's when we ended up going virtually. And then over time, that number, you know, kept going down. Over break, it actually went below 10 for a little while, which we hadn't seen for some time. And now it's just as we expected. After 2 weeks of Christmas and you throw New Year's in there, that those numbers have just kind of steadily started marching back up. As we sit today, we're at about 15.5%. I also know as I look at our, and we post all of that on our Return to Learn website, so it's very easy to see kind of how we've been trending over those past 14 days. We've got some big days right after Christmas that'll be falling off this week. So it really depends on where we're at as we continue to move forward. That's why my message to staff consistently is we just got to keep doing what we're doing, wearing our masks, and that goes for what we do in school and also outside of school. Because that was, as we saw, when we got over 20% of positivity in the community, it became very difficult to keep staff in the building. And that's when we couldn't keep staff in the building is when we needed to go virtual. So we want to try to prolong that or try to prevent that if at all possible as well. Along with that, a lot of talk about the vaccine. As that starts to roll out, we're currently in that phase 1A, which is healthcare workers. And so one of the things is, what does that mean for schools? So we know whenever they go to 1B, that our education staff will be included in 1B. Although that hasn't been completely defined by the state yet, and hopefully this week, as I talk to County Health today, they get more clarification on that. But in general, everything we've heard is our teachers will be a part of that. And again, the other kind of challenge with that, we know although the manufacturers have produced a lot of vaccine, it's been slow to roll out and actually get those injections to people. So they're still working through that 1A process. The other thing that, although we do this county by county, and the allocation of vaccine is county by county, so Muscatine County, once they finish their 1A rollout, they can't move on to 1B until all the other counties are ready for 1B. And then any of the surplus in any other counties, so if a different county they're behind and they have more need and they can't get it, other counties may have to send some of that supply. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes to try to get this rolled out. And so that's going to take a while. So we can't promise that vaccine's around the corner, but we know it is going to be here. We'll be sending out a survey to staff to determine if the vaccine, when it becomes available, will you take it? And then from that, we share that information with the county health. So they have our numbers and they're collecting all of those numbers. So they start to have an idea of what that will look like. So the other thing that we have to keep in mind is it's not a quick process either. So just because somebody has their first injection doesn't mean we're set. And that it's probably a 6-week process. I know for Pfizer, it's at least, I think it's 21 days, and it's 28 for Moderna. And so it can't be any sooner than that. It can be after that, but it can't be any sooner. So really, we could be talking a 6-week process, even once we get started. We also know we can't just take McKinley as a building and vaccinate everybody all at once, because we could have some people that get sick. So we have to stage that. So all of that is kind of in the process as we lay this out, and we'll keep you posted on that. So a couple of other things I want to make sure I update you on. You should have started to see, or you will continue to see on social media, some changes to our winter sports spectator guidelines. As you know, the governor for a while had some restrictions in there, so we could have 2 tickets per athlete, and that's all we had. And she's lifted all those restrictions. So that doesn't mean we just let everybody in, okay? Kind of like we did with football and with our fall sports. We go back to the pieces that we had in place. So as we've worked through some of that as a kind of MAC conference group, both athletic directors and superintendents, and that's reflected in the guidelines that went out today. It's 4 tickets per athlete or participant for the home, for us when we have home events. And then visitors, and this is consistent across all MAC conference events, visitors get 2 per participant. So the problem is it's a different capacity at North Scott in the pit than it is in our gym. We can fit more people. And so we're all kind of working around those guidelines, so it allows us to bring in more people to our home games. But we can't necessarily send that same amount into North Scott, because if we sent our 4 tickets per athlete, we'd be over capacity for them. So that was a way we could establish kind of a baseline for everybody. That also allows us to have 50 tickets for community members and 50 tickets for students. So again, we're still, all of those requirements of social distancing, mask wearing, all of that stays in place, but it just allows us to expand on the number of people that can attend in person. So that went out today, so we'll continue to look for that. The other thing we did, as you know, before, as we were into Christmas break or just after Christmas break, Congress passed the ESSER 2, the second COVID Act. And so that additional monies went to the state. For the state of Iowa, that was about $340 million. So we're very thankful for that. Allocations are going to be distributed out to all the districts. We do not know exactly. We know it's going to be more than our first allocation. That first allocation for us was about $700,000. So we know it's going to be more than that, but we don't know exactly how we can spend that money and the timeline. Obviously, we're not going to spend that by the end of the year. We're about halfway through the first allocation of COVID funding. So is that another year? Is that 2 more years? And what are the restrictions around that? So we have a webinar set up with the state of Iowa on Thursday. So we'll get more information on that. And as we have that, we'll share that with you. One of the pieces that's in there that's important to talk about is the COVID leave. So in that first CARES Act, there was funding available for providing 10 days for people exposed to or COVID positive for leave, paid leave. That went away January 1 because that was not renewed in the legislation. So a number of districts, as of January 1, no longer offer COVID leave to their staff. So you use your sick days or any of your leave time available. What I would recommend for us as a district, that as we navigate through the rest of this month of January, if somebody has not used their COVID leave and there's an exposure or they're positive, we continue to grant those 10 days. If they've already previously used it, we do not. That gives us a little bit of transition time. Make sure staff know that we're making that transition, and then starting February 1, anything after that, that would be back to their own sick leave from there on out. So just want to make sure we at least have some discussion on that. Are there any concerns or questions about that?
So that includes if they were contact tracing also, and they were in contact, so they have to be in quarantine.
So if public health says you've been exposed, you need to quarantine for 10 days, that falls on them for their sick leave.
So what happen? What do we do if we have a staff member that's not prudent, I
What
guess?
we have done so far is, and we've been working very closely, public health has been great to work with. If we go by their recommendation, right? If they say they should quarantine, then they quarantine.
Okay, so then, but we only have leave for so many, like if they've done it 2 different times.
Right, so that comes out of their sick leave. If they are out of their days, those would be doc days.
All right.
Yep. So I just want to make sure I'm seeing some head nodding and supportive. I just want to make sure that we are supportive of that as we move forward. Like I said, very few districts they ended that January 1.
They ended theirs immediately.
Yep.
I'm just happy to see that we have, as you said, more this time around than we did before. So then we will have to, as we go along, try to anticipate what all that we're going to be able to use that
Yep.
funds for then.
Yep.
That's good.
Okay, I'm going to assume you're approving of that.
Do we need to have a?
You want us to approve it?
Do we need to make a motion?
I just want to hear from you. I'm getting a lot of looks. I'm getting some head nods.
I'm
nobody's-
I'm in
okay
favor of
with
that.
Or give me a
Support it.
thumbs up.
I'm supportive.
Okay,
I'm okay with it.
all right.
Double thumb.
So we'll move forward with that, and then we'll also notify staff right away, starting tomorrow, of this change and what that means, so we can get that in front of them as well. So a couple of other things, just to keep on your radar, we'll be moving into a new legislative session, and that means that's starting to anticipate what we'll have for budget for next year. We'll continue to advocate for additional supplemental aid for all districts, because I do think that will be the best solution to not knowing exactly where students are this year with COVID and how that'll impact us next year. I think it also helps, again, the number of districts that will be on a budget guarantee, which reduces the burden to taxpayers as well. So we'll begin meeting with legislators to talk through that. The other thing that they're going to be talking about is, one, we don't know what the governor's going to do in terms of mandating everyone return full face-to-face. We hope that, the one thing we talk a lot about is local control, that they allow local control to be locally controlled. And if we determine, you can't just turn a high school schedule over immediately, so that takes time to plan that out, that they give us enough kind of runway to make sure we can do that successfully. The other thing, some of the pieces that are in there for this year, so based on legislation they passed last year, it allowed us to do a hybrid model this year. That expires at the end of the year. So will that be something that they will continue to allow us to do? Will that go away? We don't really know. What I will say, and I've said this before, again, I think local control should be locally controlled. If we have teachers, and as we work through the scheduling process at the high school, that can find a way to offer that to our students, and parents and students choose to go in there, because we've had some students that have been really successful in a hybrid model, that they allow us to do that, okay? So to say we're going to go back and do business exactly as we did it 2 years ago, I'm not sure is a good thing. We've learned a lot through this process. We've added capacity. We've added ability of our teachers to teach in a digital format in ways that we didn't before. We should be able to leverage those. And so, again, as I talk with legislators, I'll be asking them to just allow us to have that flexibility of local control and parent choice. And again, I think we've got some great teachers in here at this district that are doing great work, and if we can find ways to do that, I think we should. So we'll keep you posted on anything that happens with that. On a testing note, we are required to test this year, all students, in the state test. We may be the only state in the country that's doing that, but we will be doing that. Had a meeting earlier last week with the state and the Department of Education, and that was really clear. The legislation was passed that this year, you got to pass last year, but you're testing this year. How they're going to use that may still be up in the air, but we're doing it, okay? And then the last thing that I want to share with you, so this year also allowed remote learning, as you know, but it also allows us to use remote learning days for weather-related days, for snow days. So there's been a lot of conversation, are we totally going away from snow days and only doing remote learning, or how's that all going to work? And so, one of the things we have to take into consideration is when we build a calendar, we build in some additional hours. We have to have so many hours. I think it's 1,080 hours in the school year. We build in more hours than that. And then there are certain things that, you can have certain days that come up and take away from those hours, and you're still meeting the required hours for the year. So for instance, when we went to the virtual online model for all students, we front-loaded that with a day of professional development for teachers. That came out of our kind of surplus number of hours, okay? So we have about 4 days kind of in the bank yet for this year. We've got a lot of year left to go, okay? And so in my conversation with the association, and there'll be more communication on this, in the event of a weather event, the first one I would likely take as just a snow day or weather day that we would not make up. We'd still have additional days kind of in the bank. After that point, we would look at doing remote days. And again, we'll send out information on what schedules look like. And in those events, I would intend that, what we do right now is people start talking about it about 2 weeks in advance of any weather that's coming. And they keep talking about it through the week as we build up to it. At least the day before, as students and teachers before they leave, if we know, and we know from the National Weather Service, something is coming, we just don't know exactly what it is, we'll just call it as a remote learning day. People can leave prepared and plan accordingly for the next day, okay? Otherwise, what we're doing is we're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, we're driving roads, is it a 2-hour late start, is it the full day? And then we're letting people know, and people are scrambling to do that. So my intent would be we would just kind of go with the first one, and then after that, we use them as remote days. Okay?
So, did you just say, though, you're gonna do a preemptive remote day, that regardless of how the weather is the next day, it's gonna be remote?
I think instead of waiting till 5 in the morning, because if we're gonna ask them to work online, we need to make sure teachers are prepared, kids have their devices, teachers have their devices, that we just say the night before, we know something is coming tomorrow. And again, I'm not gonna just say that willy-nilly, right? We're gonna make sure, usually, and the National Weather Service over the last few years, both in Minnesota and here, even leading up to the ice storm, right, that we had over break, PowerPoints, lots of information, here's the timing of it, here's what's coming. Now again, it didn't come exactly as we thought it was, but it was a significant event. So typically we know when those things are coming. We just don't know exactly how it's gonna play out.
But if you call a remote day, the next day, it's going to be remote.
It is going to be
even
remote.
if the weather's perfect.
Even if the weather is perfect.
Just making sure.
Yep.
I know that there'll be plenty of parents that would love that idea, that they do not have to try to look at that clock and see if that is actually, am I having to deal with the kids or don't have to deal with the kids? So any advance information that's a great way of doing it.
Karen, what I'll tell you is I don't anticipate having any fewer calls doing this. They'll just be different calls.
Right.
Very true.
And that's all I have for you this evening.
I would certainly hope that our ability to maintain that local control is granted, and thinking about what the year could look like next year and following years. I can't think of anything that I do today that has not dramatically changed because of the pandemic. And yet, I'm able to get everything that I need and then some. And we've figured it out as a nation. We've figured out how to do it. We've done it differently. And it hasn't been all bad. Change is not bad. Change can be a great thing. So I hope that we will be able to continue to think about those changes in education. And while the changes might have felt a little painful, and they were, and maybe we didn't have as much advance notice as promised or hoped, but water under the bridge for that. But looking at different ways to do things, I certainly hope that we'll be granted that. So, all right. That takes us to our action and possible items on the agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. Those items are minutes, bills and claims, employment recommendations, special contracts, and policies with policies with either no, minor, or required by law changes. So the board had a large list of policies to review again this month, this month. Some of those we don't have a choice, they're required by law, so it's a one-time reading, and we approve them. I suppose we do have a choice, but orange is not a good color for me. So those will get approved. Then there's another set of policies that will go through our traditional 3 readings of policies. So what are the wishes of the board on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Tammy, there were a couple of policies that I wanted to pull from those, if we could talk about them. I don't know if this is the right time for that or not.
I think for the consent agenda, we have them as items B through E. So we would do F separately. So we will talk about those items.
So F is actually part of the consent agenda. So do you have, if there's items in F that you want pulled out, I think we can pull those out separately.
Could we pull policy 900.3, 204.12R1, 305, 407.3,
Tell me the last one again, Mike.
407.3?
Okay.
I believe that there was suggested changes. A handout was given to everybody, so you could flip that.
Okay. So Director Schur made the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Are you okay with pulling out those 4 policies?
Yeah, I'll change that to pulling out those 4 policies.
And just to make it a little bit easier, under letter F, that was, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, it was number 9, 12, 17, and 26.
Correct.
Were the policy numbers that you gave.
Correct.
And under employment recommendations, while we still have a motion on the floor, we also had 2 resignations that I don't know if you want to lump those in as well with the consent agenda, or if you wanted those pulled out separately.
My recommendation would be to approve them tonight, yes.
Okay.
As is.
Okay,
Oh, as is?
Yeah. Just leave them in then.
okay. So is there a second to the consent agenda, pulling out those 4 policies?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda minus the 204.12R1, 305, 407.3, and 900.3, please signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And the motion carries. So that takes us to then item F, which would be the 4 policies that were listed. So Mike, do you want to take those just in the order that they were and start with 204.12R1?
And at your table, just not to interrupt you, Mike, we do have for 204.12R1, 305, and the 407.3. In talking about this with Mike today, and whenever we have disagreements and complaints and we go through that process, it does help to have the people involved in the previous meetings at the next meeting, right? And so as we talked about it, my recommendation is, as the policy states and highlighted in yellow, that we add whenever possible. Each subsequent meeting should include all participants from previous meetings, again, to make sure that everyone's on the same page, but it doesn't require it, because there may be situations where we don't want that. So it just gives us some flexibility, but states that our intent is that all those people should be involved. So, Mike?
Exactly, Clint. I just think that the transparency, the communication, instead of having 2 meetings and talking to a parent and then talking to an employee on separate ones, if everybody's sitting at the table at the same time, I just think that it helps resolve the situation quicker. So that would be the recommendation for all 3 of those. For 204.12, they're all highlighted in yellow, that
Yep.
whenever possible, there'll be a subsequent, everybody that was at the previous meeting be part of the current meeting.
Mike, can I get you to pull your microphone just a little bit closer to you? As we're all still learning how to do this mast, I think sometimes at home we can hear each other, but I think at home they're having a little trouble on the audio.
Gotcha.
Anything else on those four?
Just on the second one would be 900.3, and we adopted an our school facilities scheduler, something to centralize our communication, how the facilities were handed out. And so instead of, with that, we needed to take out the obtain a contract through the board office, because it's no longer handled through the board office, it's actually handled through a facilities scheduler. So it's just adding the additional highlighted yellow and taking out a part that no longer exists.
A contract is still issued, though, is that correct? That still requires to be signed?
So it goes through, if somebody wanted to use the facilities, they would have to go through, currently it's Jill Reynolds at the facilities department. She gets them to be a user on the our school facilities part, so there's and then that part is, I don't know if a contract is actually generated with that, but a fee would be assigned if it needed to be assigned. It's all electronic at that
Right,
point.
we're just removing obtain a contract, which I'm wondering if needs to stay in addition to,
I think it's also important to remember this is for student groups. As you read through the policy, this is not, it's student initiated, and it's during the
Yep.
school day, which separates it a little bit from our out-of-school community use in that. So that's why we want to make sure that the building principal is aware and approves of that. And then if they need specific space within the building, they schedule that through our facility schedule service.
And when they go through this, the facility service, that report is generated weekly for the principals as well, to let them know what's coming up in their building that week. So whether it's during the day or at night, that's all in one nice document.
So are you saying that, in other words, there's two different people that have to okay?
It'll still be okay just by the facilities part. The problem is that it was said to contact somebody at the board office, and that's not the right place to go. It's to go through the process that we have established in our committee through the facilities department. Whether it was outside or inside the building, outside of the school day or inside the school day.
so those four, Mike, that you've had pulled out, they were at our table. The highlighted pieces have been added.
Right.
What are the wishes of the board on those four policies? Of which you have to approve before we could leave tonight.
Can I make the motion?
Absolutely.
I would make a motion to adopt all four policies with the highlighted, the yellow highlighted additions and the crossed out in 900.3, the crossed out line of obtain a contract through the board office.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the four remaining policies as presented with the changes that were given to us this evening or that have been updated. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries. That takes us to, Tom, letter G,
Yes.
which is to approve administration authority to seek
Yep. We wanna seek it.
SBRC.
We want to approve it, actually, but, so tonight, we're talking about School Budget Review Committee modified supplemental amount for 21-22 school year returning dropouts and dropout prevention at-risk program. The amount we're seeking to approve is $1,090,819. Our at-risk program budget is made up of, is funded three different sources, or three different ways. There's weighted at-risk money that we get automatically through the our funding formula. And then there is this portion, which is property tax, $1,090,000. and then there's a match that we have to make through our general fund. So the second page is our at-risk programming proposed budget. It is in different categories here. At the bottom, I've broken out the number of FTE that are funded through our at-risk programming. There's also a number of purchase services that we have through our at-risk programming, and that's namely our resource navigators. A portion of them are funded through here because we do have a couple other sources that we fund those through. So the third page is simply the formula, how it's determined, where did we come up with $1,090,000. It's formula driven. It's 3.3% of our district cost per pupil times our certified enrollment. So we are asking for board approval tonight for the $1,090,819. Again, it's not anything new. We do this every year, so the budget just kind of fluctuates every year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the administration authority to seek the SBRC modified supplemental amount for the 21-22 dropouts and dropout prevention at-risk programs at $1,090,819. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Easiest one yet, right, Tom? The next items on our agenda are discussion and information items. So this is the first reading on the policies that you see in front of you. There are 20 of them. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to read through those. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can get those to Lisa. She can forward them on from there. You'll see these 2 more times before we make final approval on those. That takes us then to the Career Academy Cooperative 28E agreement with Eastern Iowa Community College.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to go through and just kind of highlight some of so we have a 28E agreement with Muscatine Community College. We signed that agreement for this year. It doesn't seem like all that long ago. This is an updated agreement. There's a couple of pieces in that we need to talk through, and it's also kind of a long-term agreement. So what's slightly different about this, and I should also say Dr. Jeremy Pickard is here from Muscatine Community College, so when you start asking hard questions, I'm just going to turn and point to him and let him answer those. So part of this agreement, it kind of sets a 10-year plan for this. And it is tied to some other pieces which I'll talk about. I think the biggest change is what part of this agreement does is change how the fees applied to these are applied. So right now we have for every student who takes a course, that course per hours, there's that fee, and we pay that full amount. And essentially what this agreement does is separate, and then based on a specific number of students, in essence, we are paying rent for the facilities, the instructors, the materials for a certain number of students, and then for any student who takes a course, we pay 30% of that tuition fee. When you base it on what we're actually doing, there's really no difference in cost to us right now. So why would we do that? A number of districts also in doing this, because it allows us to use Pebble funds, because we can use Pebble for rental fees. So it takes some of those funds out of the general fund and flows through that Pebble fund. So there's some flexibility. It doesn't mean we have to, it just gives us, we believe, the flexibility to do that. This also ties in with some additional facility upgrades that Muscatine Community College is committing to do. And that's actually Eastern Iowa Community Colleges. And so there's pieces of this that will impact facilities and programming at Clinton Community College, at Scott Community College, and here at Muscatine Community College. So in order to be able to add some additional facilities and some additional programs, essentially the agreements going to all these districts is, yes, we're saying, you know, we want to be a part of this and we're committing to a certain number of students. What you'll see in our agreement for the number of students is for next year, we would be agreeing to, we would have 42 students in the program. Currently this year, we have 42 students in the program. And then moving forward, we would move that to 53. As we talk about a facility bond for Eastern Iowa Community College here in a little bit, they are adding programs to their career academies at Muscatine Community College, specifically a construction trades, an auto tech program that would, again, that our students would have access to. They've also expanded an education program that we would have, and you do have a nice little flyer in here with some of those. Also expanding the nursing program, which is one of the most popular programs they have. So they have a waiting list on that. So expanding all of these programs, and then I have no concern about adding additional students to that. It ties really well with what we just did with Portrait of a Graduate. As we talked about changing graduation requirements, adding additional flexibility into kids' schedules, which is one of the reasons they can't always get to these experiences. So I think we're gonna be just fine on that. So the agreement, the 2080 agreement, tonight we're just talking about it and answering questions about it. We'll come back and ask you to approve that. We'll have kind of a special portion of our meeting, our second meeting in January, for you to approve that. What we would ask tonight, or what I would ask tonight in conversation, if there is agreement by the board, that Tammy would sign a document that's included in yours that just say, we would be supportive of Eastern Iowa Community College moving forward with their March bond referendum to expand facilities, expand programs, and that bond, as they've established it, would be cost neutral. They have some debt, my understanding, falling off, so that wouldn't be an additional cost to our taxpayers, but it's good for our kids. So as a district, we're saying we would be supportive of them pursuing that referendum in March. So I kind of talked around a little bit that and would entertain any questions that you have, knowing that I'm going to pass a bunch of them off to Jeremy. But again, I do think this times really well with what we just did with our Portrait of a Graduate, and will be a great opportunity for our kids.
So we're running spaces, say, for 42 students this year, we have doing it for 42 next year?
Yep.
And 53 in the future?
Yep.
What happens if we don't fill those spots? We still pay for those spots?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so they're kind of basing this as like 300 students, I think, across the entire Eastern Iowa Community College region. So as long as they hit those 300 students, they're not necessarily worried about it. In theory, we could be charged for a student that we don't have, okay? Probably more of a concern for the smaller districts that don't have as many students currently in programs. So when you look at, you know, what we have to commit to versus what West Liberty or Wilton or others, we have a lot more flexibility in that. And again, based on the programs they're going to be offering, and the more flexibility we'll have in our student schedule, I don't think we'll have a concern reaching that number.
Right.
We can always go more, we just, and we want to at least hit that minimum.
Right.
So on the flip side of it, if we go more, then does one of the smaller districts, are they basically paying for our kids?
Not necessarily, no, because you're still being charged that. So everyone's kind of hitting their base amount, and then you're 30% of the students who are taking those courses.
I just thank you that the fact that we have something like our community college that is nearby, that we have been great partnerships in the past, and to see what we're looking to do for the future, as you say, that it just coincides so nicely with what we're looking at, the program of successful student. I mean, I know in itself that automotive technology, that's great to see that somebody could end up with that kind of amount of money. I know that for a fact because I had to get my car repaired, and I know very recently as in what all that costs. So each one of these type of jobs that they have even listed as examples are such a wonderful way for a lot of our kids to move forward. So thank you for continuing to work with our college to get something like this happening.
And I think Dr. Pickard would say that those programs they're looking at expanding, there is need in our community. You know, as we look at the auto service industry specifically in this community, they need more people to be able to do repairs, right? So that's a need. As we look at construction tech, as we look at healthcare needs, all of those have been in conversation with community groups and businesses based on the need that's in our community.
So I think that's an all thumbs up. Again, is that a true statement while we're not voting tonight from everybody? Does that feels good? Good. I'll echo Karen's comments. We are so fortunate to be able to work with our community college locally. I still remember the first MHS student that actually finished a 2-year degree at MCC the week before she graduated, and lives in the community, is a nurse. What a great thing to be able to do, and for so many of our students to be able to get those college credits and just starting down that path even before they're stepping out of the threshold of MHS. So we're grateful to have the resource, and Jeremy, we thank you all for your support.
Tammy, if I may say something, I will miss if I don't even welcome my dean, Dr. Pickard, here to this meeting. So thank you, Jeremy. So I know as a person watching him all the time that he's working very hard on things like that. So thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. I just appreciate giving us the opportunity to do this. We feel like MHS is one of our strongest partners. And you can see you're our largest school district in the area. And so it is a critical partnership with you in order to be able to do projects like this. We've tried to make it as cost effective as possible and as economically feasible for all students to be able to participate in education after they complete high school. I want to make sure there's a couple things you're aware of. I put some information there about what we're currently doing. But if a student earns 12 credit hours and has a 3.0 GPA while they're in high school, we'll half price their tuition to come to us and to continue their education. And so they essentially got 12 plus credit hours for free while they were in high school, and now we're going to half price that next year. It really does make education very much affordable for those in our community who maybe don't have the opportunity to do so. And it's partnerships like this that we think are going to really lift up not just a select few, but our entire community as well.
Jeremy, at the risk of asking you to repeat that, would you repeat it but up at the mic? That was such an important piece of what you said and such great value to our students. I just want to make sure that our audience at home gets to hear that as well.
Sure. So I just want to tell you about a program that we implemented several years ago, and that's where if a student earns 12 credit hours of college credit while in high school, our foundation will come alongside them. Again, they need a 3.0 or better in those 12 credit hours. Typically, that's free to the college, to the student who's participating in it. We'll half price their tuition for that next year if they come to us full time. So you have free essentially one semester, half price the next 2 semesters. You're really only on the hook for 1 semester of community college tuition, and we're the second lowest in the state of Iowa. So it really is making education accessible for all people, and it's partnerships like this and pipelines with this that we're really excited about to give students a chance to better themselves. Because a lot of the students who are going to go through these programs, they're going to be residents of Muscatine for a long time. A lot of times they're not leaving our communities, they're staying here. It's a great way to grow our town. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a great way to grow our town. All right, anything else on Career Academy? We'll look for more exciting updates on that as we go. Tom, it's time for our November financials.
Sure.
All right, so tonight are the November financials. As you can see on our agenda here, we approved the SBRC MSA for dropout prevention tonight. February 8th, we'll have our FY20 audit as an action item, as well as requesting proposals for audit services for FY21 through 23. And then February 22nd will be our budget work session, and April will be approving the FY22 budget. And then you can see on the rest of the timeline there. So deposit balances, we have November reconciled. You know, really on all of these pages, I don't have anything, you know, ordinary or extraordinary to point out. Our fund balances compared to last year are okay. Our revenues and expenditures are just roughly the same percent as where we were last year, so I'm not, you know, no red flags or maybe not even a yellow flag this month. So, you know, those are the November financials and no other comments. So.
Anybody have any questions for Tom? Okay. That takes us to our announcements then, and we'll start with tomorrow, January 12th. The Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry will be at the Muscatine Administration Center. That will be from 4:30 to 6. That process is a drive-through process. It is a well-oiled machine now, even pandemic style. So if you know someone that is has food insecurities, is in need, please send them to the administration center. They can just drive through and we load them up and they're on their way. January 15th takes us to the end of first semester. And I can't remember, Clint, I think if it was you that said we still have a lot of days left in the year. And I thought, has it only been a year? Because some days it feels like it's been longer than a year. And I know you all are living that all the time. So, but I'm so excited. We are almost to the end of first semester. We have made it to the halfway point. And I do think that is, it is cause for a celebration and a pat. You have to pat yourselves on your own back because you can't pat each other on the back. But we have to celebrate halfway there. We are halfway through an incredibly difficult year. So.
And so is Clint for his first year, so thank you, Clint.
He probably feels like it's been 5 years already, poor guy.
6 months.
So only 6 months, not that you're counting.
Officially.
Then that takes us to January 18th, which we will have a no school day. It's a teacher quality in service day that day. So that's January 18th. And then January 25th will be the next meeting of the board, and we will have two portions of that meeting. So we will have the first portion of the meeting where we will have an item to approve, which I anticipate will be the 2080 agreement. And then we will move into a transition to a work session, just giving us time to go through the next set of things that we as a board need to be talking about and ready for in February. Does anybody else have any other announcements for the good of the cause or anything they want to add?
If I may just announce one thing, Muscatine Sister Cities will be celebrating 35 years of citizen diplomacy. The organization decided to have major event every month. And our first major event will be on the 28th of this month. It will be virtual, and the president and CEO of Sister Cities International from Washington, D.C. will be with us.
John, what time is that at?
The event starts at 6 o'clock, and it's for 1 hour, 6 to 7.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Okay. So January 28th, 6 p.m. Great. Anything else? As we tackle this, I think, third week of January, which has been predicted to potentially be a difficult week, coming off of Christmas, coming off of New Year's, I would just continue to ask that you thoughtfully wear your mask, that you socially distance, that you're washing your hands often. And I hope that you are all looking forward to a time to getting a vaccine. If you are comfortable with that, I know I certainly am looking forward to a time. Every vaccine that is administered in this country puts us all one step closer to some sort of normal and getting our students back to some sort of normal as well. So I hope we are on the downhill slide, but we do need to remain vigilant as we continue in these next few months, and these next few weeks will be telling as we, some of us are living and breathing that positivity rate and watching every day. It's right after email. It's, I think, the second thing I'm looking at to see what the number is. So please stay safe. I would ask that you all do that. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the meeting's adjourned. Thank